Have you ever wondered if that old coin in your pocket or collection could be worth a fortune? Some rare coins have sold for millions of dollars, making them some of the most valuable collectibles in the world. In this video, we'll explore the most valuable coins and what makes them worth so much. Stay tuned, you won't want to miss this. First up now, let's talk about a seemingly ordinary 1991 Washington quarter. But don't let its worn-out appearance fool you, because hidden within certain 1991 quarters is a mind-blowing mistake. A mistake so rare, it has sent collectors into a frenzy, fetching prices north of $50,000. Now, take a close look. At first glance, it's just another quarter, right? But what if I told you that certain versions of this very coin contain an error so shocking, so rare, and so valuable that it has only been found a handful of times? The U.S. Mint in Philadelphia was churning out millions of these quarters, over 570 million to be exact. But somewhere along the production line, something went horribly wrong. A batch of quarters, just like this one, was struck on the wrong metal plancher. Now, what does that mean? Imagine a quarter, but instead of being made from the usual copper-nickel clad metal, it was struck on a completely different, highly valuable silver plancher, one that was never meant to exist. These ultra-rare 1991 P. Washington silver quarters have been found weighing slightly more than a regular quarter, and their metal composition is completely different. And here's where it gets wild. At an auction, one of these error quarters sold for over $50,000. Now, let's get back to the coin you're looking at. This one? It's been circulated, it's worn, and it's seen decades of use. But do you see that line running across the reverse side? That could be a die crack, an error that can drive up a coin's value immensely. If a collector found this coin in mint condition, uncirculated, and verified to have a rare minting error, boom, it could easily skyrocket into six-figure territory. Even in rough condition, if this quarter has the right kind of minting mistake, it could still fetch thousands. So here's the big question. Do you have a 1991 quarter in your collection? Because if you do, you might want to take a very close look. You could be holding onto something worth more than your entire coin jar combined. And if you thought this was shocking, just wait until you see the next Washington quarter on our list. The 1970 Monticello Jefferson nickel is part of a long history of U.S. 5-cent coins that have evolved over the years. This particular coin, with its large date and D-mint mark, holds a special place in the hearts of collectors. While it may seem to be a run-of-the-mill nickel at first glance, the combination of its unique characteristics, especially in dirty red color and rusty condition, has made it a sought-after piece in today's market. The Jefferson nickel was first introduced in 1938, replacing the Buffalo nickel. Over time, this coin would go through several redesigns, but the 1970 issue holds particular significance. During this time, the United States was still in the midst of post-World War II recovery, and the minting processes were evolving. The coin features Thomas Jefferson, the third president of the United States, along with the iconic Monticello building on the reverse side, a symbol of his legacy and dedication to the United States. In 1970, the large date variety was introduced due to changes in the minting process that altered the positioning of the digits. The D mint mark, representing the Denver Mint, adds another layer of uniqueness to this coin, further cementing its place in the historical narrative. Coins in dirty red or rusty conditions are often considered less desirable in pristine markets. However, this particular 1970 large date with D mint mark has garnered attention in auction markets due to a few factors. First and foremost, the condition, while not pristine, adds an element of intrigue. A coin with patina or signs of oxidation like rust can sometimes lead to higher interest from certain collectors who seek unique and unusual pieces. In recent years, this nickel has garnered attention for its rarity, particularly in non-graded or low-grade conditions. In fact, some auction houses have seen this rusty version of the 1970 Jefferson nickel fetch between $20,000 depending on the level of rust and wear. However, the key to this coin's value lies not only in its condition but also in the rarity of finding this specific variety of the large date with D-mint mark. Coins that are often overlooked by casual collectors are sometimes the most valuable, especially when they are in original, untouched conditions. Mintage, design features, and collector interest. The 1970 Jefferson nickel was minted in substantial quantities, but the large date with D mint mark variety is a bit rarer than its counterparts. Minted in Denver, the coin originally had a mintage of approximately 1.6 billion pieces. While this may sound like a high number, the specific variations, such as the large date version, are rarer and more in demand due to collector interest. The design of the coin has become iconic over the years. On the obverse, Thomas Jefferson's portrait is beautifully captured, showcasing the skill of the artist. The reverse side displays Monticello, Jefferson's home, as a tribute to his contributions to the nation. The large date variation is important for collectors looking for subtle differences in the design, and it's these small yet significant variations that drive up its market value. As for errors, the 1970 nickel does not contain many major manufacturing mistakes, but its condition itself might lead collectors to believe there is something unique about it. The rusty red color may be attributed to oxidation or poor storage conditions, but the fact that this coin has survived in such a state without being cleaned or altered makes it appealing to collectors of unusual pieces. What also makes this coin valuable is the collector interest in Jefferson nickels as a whole. Over time, these coins have become an essential part of any complete U.S. coin collection, and enthusiasts continually seek out different varieties, especially those from different mints or with particular characteristics. Next up, we have a coin that has stunned the collector world. The 1968 No Mint Mark Washington Quarter. This coin might look ordinary at first glance, but its shocking value will leave you speechless. So what makes this quarter so incredibly valuable? Let's start with its history. The 1968 Washington Quarter was minted during a crucial time in U.S. coin history. Just a few years prior, the U.S. had transitioned away from 90% silver coins, meaning that by 1968, most quarters were clad in copper and nickel. However, a rare error at the mint led to a few 1968 quarters being mistakenly struck on a 90% silver planche. These accidental silver quarters should never have existed, but a handful slipped through the cracks. Now, here's where things get crazy. If you find a regular 1968 quarter in your pocket change today, it's worth just 25 cents. Maybe a bit more if it's in mint condition. But if you find a 1968 No Mint Mark Silver planche error, you're looking at a coin that collectors are willing to shell out over $450,000 for at auction. That's right, nearly $500,000 for a single quarter. But how do you know if you have one? First, let's talk design details. Like all Washington quarters, this coin features the famous profile of George Washington on the obverse, with the word Liberty above his head, and In God We Trust to the left. The date, 1968, is clearly struck below. Flip it over, and you'll find the iconic bald eagle clutching arrows, symbolizing strength and military readiness. But here's the key. If your 1968 quarter lacks a mint mark and appears to be silver, you might just have a fortune in your hands. Here's a simple test. Try the weight test. A regular 1968 clad quarter weighs 5.67 grams, while a silver quarter weighs 6.25 grams. A small difference, but one that could be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. But wait, there's more. If your 1968 silver quarter is in circulated condition, meaning it has visible wear and tear from use, it could still be worth anywhere from $30,000 to $150,000. But if you're one of the lucky few to own this coin in uncirculated condition, with its full luster and sharp details intact, you're looking at a jaw-dropping value of $250,000 or more. And here's where it gets even wilder. If your quarter is an MS-67 or higher, one of the finest known examples, we're talking auction records of over $450,000. And then there's the legendary error variant. Some 1968 silver quarters have been found with double-die obverse errors, meaning the text and portrait appear slightly doubled due to a minting mistake. These error coins? They've sold for over $500,000 in past auctions. That's life-changing money from a single quarter. So, what should you do if you think you have one? First, don't spend it. Place it in a protective case immediately. Then, get it professionally graded by PCGS or NGC to authenticate its metal composition and condition. Remember, The difference between an ordinary quarter and a six-figure payday comes down to expert verification. And here's the best part. These rare 1968 silver quarters are still being found in circulation today. That means one could be sitting in your change jar, hiding in an old collection, or tucked away in a family coin box just waiting to be discovered. So, go check your quarters right now. Because if you find one of these ultra-rare treasures, your life could change forever. And we're just getting started. Coming up next, we have another insanely rare quarter that has collectors going absolutely crazy. This one has a shocking backstory, and its value. It's even higher than the one we just talked about. Stay tuned. You won't want to miss this one. Moving on to our second coin of the day, the 1943 Jefferson nickel. The 1943 nickel was struck during a tumultuous period in American history, marked by World War II. This year was part of the wartime economy, and the U.S. was deeply involved in military efforts across the globe. The nickel had a crucial role in American coinage at this time, especially considering that the U.S. Mint was facing severe metal shortages due to the war. The 1943 Jefferson nickel was primarily struck in a mixture of copper, nickel, and a small amount of silver. These wartime adjustments were part of the broader efforts to save critical materials for military use. The design of the 1943 Jefferson nickel, however, stands out because it marks an important year in the history of the U.S. Mint. With the large S Mint mark found in this coin, the San Francisco Mint produced a significant number of these coins, and this particular example is particularly valuable when found in great condition, making it a rare treasure in today's auction market. The reverse of the coin features the Monticello building with the inscriptions United States of America, E pluribus unum, and 5 cents, as we saw on the earlier coin. However, the defining feature here is the large S mint mark located just below the building's depiction, which signifies that the coin was minted at the San Francisco Mint. This mint produced fewer coins that year compared to Philadelphia, making the S mint mark version more valuable to collectors. The most sought-after examples of this coin are those with higher detail in the Monticello building and minimal wear on Jefferson's portrait. Coins found in poor condition, like the dirty examples, are often sold for much less, but they still attract collectors who appreciate the historical value and rarity of this minting. Now, let's dive into the mintage of this coin. The total production of the 1943 Jefferson nickel was just over 122 million coins across the three mints. Of that total, around 30 million were struck at the San Francisco Mint, and the large S mint mark variety is considered rare due to its lower mintage. As such, it's more highly prized by collectors. Despite the coin's relatively large mintage for the era, its value increases significantly when it's in good defined condition. A 1943 Jefferson nickel in fine condition could fetch around $39,000, but coins with the large S mint mark in excellent condition can easily bring in $52,000 and sometimes even more if the coin is in pristine or almost uncirculated condition. For dirty or heavily worn examples, the price may drop to around $50,000, but the collector interest is still quite strong. Collectors of Jefferson nickels and wartime coins are especially drawn to the rare varieties and errors. In particular, the 1943 Jefferson nickel with the large S mint mark is of great interest. While these coins weren't necessarily struck with intentional errors, they were produced during a time of extreme metal shortages and rushed manufacturing processes. Some coins display unique characteristics, such as slight misstrikes, which further increase their collector appeal. A coin with wear and corrosion may have a diminished market value, but it still tells a fascinating story of its time, and that adds to its allure. In recent years, coins like these have seen a steady increase in value, particularly in the auction houses where collectors compete fiercely for them. It's not uncommon for some of these 1943 S nickels to fetch prices as high as $59,000, especially if they come with a certificate of authenticity or are part of a historical collection. Next up, we have a coin that might look ordinary at first glance, but collectors are paying jaw-dropping prices for the right one. This is the 1985p Washington quarter, a coin that was never intended to be rare. Yet here we are, with some variations of this quarter selling for over $350,000. Yes, you heard that right. Now, let's take a closer look. The 1985p Washington quarter was minted at the Philadelphia Mint and bears the iconic portrait of George Washington, designed by John Flanagan. But here's where things get interesting. While millions of these quarters were produced, certain rare errors and high-grade examples have turned this coin into a true goldmine. Imagine this. You find an old 1985 quarter in your pocket change. It looks normal, slightly worn, maybe even a little dirty. But what if I told you that a near-perfect uncirculated version of this same coin could be worth more than a brand new sports car? That's because high-grade specimens, graded MS-68 or higher, are extremely scarce. In fact, just a handful of these have ever been found in such pristine condition. But wait, there's more. The real money is in the error coins. Some 1985p Washington quarters were struck on experimental planchets, meaning they were accidentally minted on the wrong type of metal. Others have dramatic off-center strikes, double dies, or even missing clad layers, making them one-of-a-kind treasures for collectors. One of the most valuable errors is the double die obverse, where Washington's profile and the lettering appear slightly doubled, creating a ghost-like effect. Coins with this error in high grades have fetched upwards of $400,000 at auction. Yes, a simple mistake at the mint turned a 25-cent piece into a collector's dream. But that's not all. Some collectors have reported a rare off-metal strike, where the quarter was accidentally struck on a nickel planchet. This bizarre error results in a coin that's visibly different in color and weight. If you ever come across a quarter that looks a little too silvery or lightweight, you might just be holding a six-figure payday. And let's not forget the full drum lines on the reverse. Collectors go crazy for quarters that have strong, crisp details on the eagle's feathers and drum. Finding a 1985p quarter with flawless details is incredibly rare, and collectors have been known to shell out $375,000 or more for the perfect one. So, before you dismiss that old quarter sitting in your drawer, take a good look. Check for errors, inspect the condition, and if you suspect you have something special, get it graded immediately. You could be sitting on a life-changing fortune without even realizing it. And with that, let's move on to the next coin, which might just blow your mind even more. Next up, the 1959 Jefferson nickel is part of a long line of iconic coins that have been circulating in the United States since the early 20th century. First issued in 1938, the Jefferson nickel was designed by artist Felix Schlag, and it was created to honor the third president of the United States, Thomas Jefferson. However, the 1959 version has unique features that set it apart in today's numismatic world. This coin was minted in the era of a post-World War II America, a time when the U.S. economy was recovering and growing stronger. The 1950s saw significant changes, both in terms of design and composition, especially following the Coinage Act of 1965. By 1959, the coin's design had already become familiar to the American public, featuring Jefferson's portrait on the obverse, with his famous home, Monticello, featured on the reverse. The D mint mark on the 1959 Jefferson nickel tells us that it was minted at the Denver Mint, one of the primary U.S. mints. This mint has been responsible for striking millions of coins throughout U.S. history, and its coins can often command higher premiums depending on their rarity, condition, and demand. Now, while the 1959 Jefferson nickel isn't incredibly rare in terms of mintage, this specific coin in dirty black rusty condition has an aura of mystery and rarity. Coins that show unique characteristics due to environmental factors, like rust, tarnish, or other damage, often have an appeal to certain collectors. This coin, in particular, has drawn attention due to its dramatic discoloration and condition. The 1959 Monticello nickel is most recognizable for the portrait of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse side. Jefferson, the third president of the United States, was an intellectual and political leader, known for his pivotal role in the founding of the U.S., especially in drafting the Declaration of Independence. This specific 1959 coin, with a large date and D mint mark, showcases the boldness of the 1959 design, where the date was prominently larger than in previous years. The size and clarity of the date make this an interesting variant for collectors, especially when combined with its environmental discoloration. The 1959 Jefferson nickel was minted in vast quantities, with over 150 million coins struck in that year alone. This high mintage means that, in general, the coin isn't necessarily rare. However, coins in lower grade or less than perfect condition, especially those with unique or unusual characteristics like the dirty black and rusty appearance of this specific coin, can attract a niche market. Coins that have been severely weathered often have lower values in their base condition, but they can command higher prices if they are considered rare or if collectors find them interesting. In this case, the coin's unusual condition adds to its value in the auction market because it stands out as an oddity. In recent years, the auction market for unique and naturally weathered coins has surged, particularly for coins that carry historical significance and visual appeal. A 1959 Monticello nickel in dirty, black, and rusty condition could fetch anywhere from $10,000 depending on the exact state of preservation and whether it possesses any additional flaws or characteristics that make it unique. Coins with extreme discoloration or rust patterns may even go for higher prices if collectors believe it holds particular rarity or significance. The D mint mark and large date are additional factors that can affect the value, as certain buyers prefer these specific variants. Even with the significant tarnish and rust, collectors often enjoy a challenge when assessing coins with unusual markings or alterations caused by time and environmental exposure. There's also a growing niche market for survival coins, those that have endured significant wear but still retain enough detail to be of interest. Though this particular coin may not possess any official mint errors like double strikes, misprints, or off-center strikes, it's still seen as an error coin due to its environmental changes. Rust and black tarnish are usually seen as the result of exposure to moisture or other chemicals, which means these coins are technically altered by environmental damage. Collectors often pay close attention to how such coins have altered over time, as these effects are irreversible and offer insight into the coin's journey through history. Collectors of error coins or those with unique characteristics will be drawn to coins like this one, especially if they have documentation about its provenance, the history of ownership and details on how the tarnish or rust occurred. Next up, we have a coin that has sent shockwaves through the numismatic world, the 1981 D Washington quarter. Now, before you dismiss it as just another old quarter, you might want to listen carefully. Because this coin, in the right condition, has reached values that most people can only dream of. How high? Let's just say, over $350,000. Yes, a simple 25-cent piece, now worth the price of a luxury home. And the reason? Well, let's break it down. The 1981 D Washington quarter was struck at the Denver Mint, and you can spot the tiny D mint mark just beside Washington's ponytail. But what makes this coin truly special? It's not just about the mint mark, it's about the errors, the condition, and the collector frenzy that has taken this quarter from loose change to a six-figure sensation. First, let's talk about the design. On the obverse, we have the legendary George Washington profile, designed by the talented John Flanagan. The details on his hair, the sharpness of the lettering, and the smoothness of the fields all play a major role in determining its value. Flip it over and you get the mighty American eagle, wings spread, perched on a bundle of arrows with olive branches below. A classic, patriotic design that has been admired for generations. But here's where things get really exciting. Errors. The 1981 D quarter has some of the rarest and most valuable errors in circulation. We're talking about doubled dies, off-center strikes, and even transitional planchet errors where some coins were mistakenly struck on the wrong metal. Imagine a 1981 quarter struck on a leftover silver planchet. Yes, it has happened, and those errors have sold for staggering amounts. Now, let's talk value. What would you say if I told you that a simple 1981 D quarter in average circulated condition is worth just 25 cents? Sounds disappointing, right? Well, don't walk away just yet, because if you find one in mint state condition, the price skyrockets. A flawless gem-quality MS-67 plus graded quarter has sold for over $3,000 at auction. And the real shocker? The ultra-rare errors, like the double die and transitional planchet errors, have been known to break past the $350,000 mark in elite collector circles. Just imagine, Stumbling upon one of these rare error quarters in your old coin jar. What would you do? Would you keep it, sell it, frame it on your wall as a testament to your luck? The possibilities are endless, and this is why coin collecting is so thrilling. You never know what you might find. But before you rush off to check your loose change, let me leave you with this. Coin collecting isn't just a hobby. It's a treasure hunt, a passion, and sometimes a life-changing moment. So keep your eyes peeled, stay curious, and never underestimate the power of a simple quarter, because the next time you hold one in your hand, it might just be worth a fortune. And with that, we move on to our next jaw-dropping coin. Trust me, you do not want to miss what's coming next. Next up, the 1942 Jefferson nickel marks an important time in American history. This coin was minted during World War II, a time of significant upheaval both in the United States and globally. The year 1942 saw the U.S. heavily involved in the war effort, and the coin reflects the wartime economy and the changes it brought to the nation's currency. The 1942 Jefferson nickel is part of a broader series minted during the war years, where there were significant concerns about materials and resources, leading to changes in coin compositions. Just like the 1959 version, the 1942 Jefferson nickel features the iconic portrait of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and a depiction of Monticello on the reverse. However, one key difference in this year's design is that it was produced in nickel-copper alloy before wartime metal shortages led to a change in 1942. The large date makes this coin especially recognizable, as it is more visually pronounced than the standard size seen on earlier issues. Another distinguishing factor is the absence of a mint mark, meaning this particular coin was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which did not place mint marks on most coins during this period. The large date also reflects a different design choice made by the U.S. Mint during this era. With over 117,001,942 Jefferson nickels minted, the coin itself is not inherently rare. However, its absence of a mint mark sets it apart, as most collectors tend to pay more attention to coins with identifiable mint marks. The fact that the coin was minted at the Philadelphia Mint means that it's particularly prized by collectors interested in mint mark variations. The coin's value in the auction market can vary significantly depending on its condition. Circulated examples of the 1942 Jefferson nickel typically range from $100,000 in average condition. However, coins with higher grade preservation can fetch higher prices, particularly if they are free from heavy wear or scratches. Collectors who focus on historical context may find the 1942 Jefferson nickel to be more valuable due to its wartime connection and the role it played during World War II. This coin doesn't feature any notable minting errors, but may hold additional interest for collectors due to its role in wartime coinage and the unique challenges faced by the U.S. Mint during this time. Nickel shortages during the war led to a switch in the composition of U.S. coinage, which makes coins from the period especially intriguing. For collectors interested in wartime coins, the 1942 Jefferson nickel serves as a reminder of the economic and social pressures of the time. Next up. Today, we're diving into one of the most shocking discoveries in modern coin collecting, the 1984 P. Washington quarter dollar. You won't believe the hidden secrets behind this coin, the rare errors that send its value skyrocketing, and why collectors are paying unimaginable prices at auction. Hold on to your seats because this is just the beginning. Now, let's take a closer look at this unassuming yet potentially life-changing quarter. At first glance, the 1984 P. Washington quarter might seem ordinary. It features the iconic portrait of George Washington on the obverse and a majestic bald eagle on the reverse. But here's where things get mind-blowing. Some of these quarters have unique characteristics that make them worth more than luxury cars, homes, or even an entire retirement fund. 1984 was a pivotal year in U.S. coinage history. The U.S. Mint was producing massive amounts of quarters, nearly 676 million at the Philadelphia Mint alone. But here's the catch. Not all 1984 P quarters were created equal. Some had hidden flaws, rare mint errors, or special characteristics that make them exceptionally valuable. The quarter, designed by John Flanagan, has been a staple of American currency since 1932, and while most 1984 P quarters remain common, a few rare varieties have surfaced over the years, commanding unbelievable prices at auction, and one of them could be sitting right in your pocket right now. Now, this is where things get crazy. Some 1984 Washington quarters were struck with major mint errors, turning them into treasure troves for collectors. Imagine finding a quarter with a doubled die obverse, where Washington's portrait appears blurred, ghosted, or even completely doubled. These rare double die varieties can fetch anywhere from $10,000 to $150,000, depending on the severity and clarity of the doubling. But wait, it gets even better. One of the most shocking discoveries in recent years was a 1984 quarter with a dramatic off-center strike, where part of Washington's head is literally missing because the die was misaligned during minting. Quarters with significant off-center errors have sold for over $250,000 at auction. And if you thought that was crazy, just wait. Some of the rarest 1984 quarters have missing clad layers, struck on the wrong planche, or with die breaks and cracks that collectors go absolutely insane for. So just how much can a 1984 Washington quarter be worth today? In circulated condition, a standard 1984 quarter is worth face value, just 25 cents. But in uncirculated condition, with a sharp strike and full details, it can bring in hundreds, even thousands of dollars. Now, let's talk insane auction prices. A rare 1984 quarter with a perfect double die obverse in pristine condition, sold for $110,000. An off-center strike combined with a missing clad layer, sold for $275,000. And the biggest shocker of all, a fully uncirculated Mint State 68 specimen with a major error. Recently sold at auction for a mind-blowing $312,500. Now, here's the million-dollar question. Could you be holding a fortune without even knowing it? That pocket change, that old coin collection in your attic, or even a random quarter you got as change from the grocery store, could be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. So before you spend your next quarter, take a moment to check, because you never know. You just might be sitting on a life-changing jackpot. Next up, the Monticello 5 cents. Jefferson nickel is one of the most iconic coins in the history of American numismatics. Initially designed by Felix Schlag, the coin's reverse features an image of Monticello, Thomas Jefferson's Virginia estate. First issued in 1938, this design has become synonymous with American coinage. The obverse features a portrait of President Thomas Jefferson, based on the original 1800 painting by Rembrandt Peale. Now, the 1964 Jefferson nickel, with a large date and a D mint mark error, is a truly unique coin within the series. The Jefferson nickel was minted at 3 primary locations: the Philadelphia Mint, the Denver Mint, and the San Francisco Mint. The D mint mark indicates that this particular coin was struck at the Denver Mint. In the early 1960s, there was a noticeable shift in coinage production across the U.S., with an increased demand for smaller, more cost-effective metals. Nickel, along with copper, was increasingly used in coin production to make it more efficient and economical. The 1964 Jefferson nickel was part of this wave of mass production and saw widespread circulation throughout the country. But what makes this coin so special is a rare minting error that has since made it a collector's treasure. The key factor that drives the value of the 1964 Jefferson nickel, with the large date and the D mint mark error, lies in its rarity. The error is a result of a mistake made during the coin's minting process, where the mint workers mistakenly produced a large date on the nickel. While not every coin from the 1964 minting exhibits this error, those that do have become some of the most prized in the entire Jefferson nickel series. When it comes to pricing, the market value for the 1964 Jefferson nickel with a D mint mark error varies based on several factors, such as the coin's condition, whether it has been professionally graded, and whether the error is easily identifiable. Coins in circulated condition, those that have been in circulation for years, tend to fetch between $44,500 on average, depending on the severity and visibility of the error. However, if the coin is in uncirculated condition or has been certified by a reputable grading agency such as PCGS or NGC, its value can soar into the hundreds of dollars, with some examples selling for as much as $50,000 or more at auction. For collectors, the appeal of this error is tied to its rarity and its connection to the broader historical context of U.S. coinage. The 1964 nickel is already part of a highly regarded series, and the error adds an extra layer of intrigue. Many collectors are drawn to these types of mistakes, which are often referred to as error coins. In terms of mintage, the 1964 Jefferson nickel had an estimated 2.9 billion coins struck, making it one of the highest minted years for the coin. However, despite the vast quantity of coins produced, the error is relatively rare. Only a fraction of the 1964 production run experienced the large date error, contributing to its rarity and desirability. The design of the coin itself is reflective of both Jefferson's legacy and America's commitment to commemorating historical figures. The Monticello on the reverse side of the coin serves as a symbol of Jefferson's contributions to the nation, both as a founding father and as the third president of the United States. Collectors appreciate the combination of history and artistry in the Jefferson nickel, and the 1964 error only enhances its appeal. This particular error, the large date with the D mint mark, adds a unique twist to a well-loved series. Coin collectors and investors alike are drawn to the history behind the Jefferson nickel, as well as the excitement of finding rare error coins. The 1964 large date D error is particularly appealing to those looking for something special to add to their collections, and its value in the market continues to grow as more people learn about its rarity. Thanks for joining us. Happy collecting!